Hey there. Out for a very last minute spot of outdoorsmanship. It's the middle of the night. I'm going to set up a fire. The primary purpose of this video is to demonstrate the BK17 clip point knife. A few modifications just while I've got you. I've stripped off that coating. The coating was no good, giving me the shits. So, and then I got a, let's get some light on there. I got a hacksaw and just roughed up the top part of the spine here just to get a sharp edge going so it strikes fire still nice and good. And using the brown handles because it matches the brown sheath. Other gear you'll see used today is a Light My Fire Scout ferro rod. And this is the Bear Grylls head torch. It's not too bad. It only uses a single AAA, so a lot better than lots of the other ones that use 123s and things like that. And the other thing you might see is I might use a brief appearance by the open L depending what I do. But what I'm going to be doing mainly, just using this knife to do some basic fire prep tasks. So let's get to it. Get some little kindlings going. The knife splits really well. Let's get some curls going. Just for the basics of a fire. Doing all this by headlights of the vehicle. So if the lighting isn't Kubrickian, I apologise. Accumulate as many little fine shavings as I can. Factory edge was pretty reasonable on this one. I know they improved those. I know they did work to improve that after a few other guys noticed that they come pretty dull. So this one did shave arm here with the factory edge. I have redone it, of course, on a work sharp by now. So what we're doing here, we're just getting some scuffed up bits of wood going, mainly just to test how the knife feels doing these little tasks. So we'll just be getting together a few sticks a bit like that, just to heap up. Knock this one down a size or two. As is quite often the case in Australia, most of our wood is rather flammable straight off the tree, but it always helps just to get some varying degrees of surface area exposure for those precarious first few minutes of a fire. but mainly it's just a fun way to test how comfortable the knife is. So just make up a few of them. Finding it a little tricky to get into a rhythm, I must say. I'm not sure if it's the blade geometries. It feels like it's kind of just skipping over the surface, but then when I angle it in, it feels like it comes to a real abrupt halt. Definitely not as intuitive as a Scandi grind to do these sorts of things with, but as you can see, it is shaving the wood. And it's very dry, hard, kind of, I often use the adjective glassy wood, and it really is. It's sort of impregnated with oil, it's sort of red gum branches. So it sort of dries quite glassy and almost sort of feels like it's going to shatter. Jimping, didn't think it would be particularly effective, but it really is. It's really sort of digging into my hand. I don't know, undecided. With gloves on it'd be fine, but then, and I did bring gloves, but you don't really want to wear gloves. You want to just be able to be quite, I like to be quite seat of the pants with how I do things. I sort of just decided on a whim to come out here. I've got the dogs in the back of the car there, just eating some schmackos while I do this. Just going to get a fire going and sit by it and have a bit of a pat. Just make up a few little bits of kindling. Yeah, it's not as comfortable as the strong arm or the F1. Definitely not. I think just the way the handle's a little bit thin up the top. I think my fingers are wrapping a bit too far around it. Wouldn't mind some chunkier handles perhaps, and you probably can get them, but yeah, just my first little impression. Just doing that, sort of, it's not the best. I can do these sorts of tasks with my Falconer and F1 for 20 minutes to half an hour before I start getting sort of the feelings I'm getting right now already in the hand. Very comfortable just to hold, but yeah, once you start pushing against it, I don't know, and it's fine. You take a 5-10 second break and you get back to being sort of fine, but I'm sure those breaks will end up needing to be longer and more frequent, that's all. Don't be alarmed about me cutting this way. There is a fair bit of branch between the knife and my knee, so unless I'd have to really swivel around to cut myself. Some safety sallies out there always seem to point out what you're doing wrong. There. Alright, well, I've got some feather sticks going. That was a little bit arduous, I must say. As I said, I like holding the knife like this, but once you start putting pressure on, just the way your hand naturally, you grip harder, and it's hard to remind yourself to loosen your grip, and you don't really want to either. So you grip harder, and when you do, I think this finger comes too far. Maybe my hands are too big for the handle or something. That is a very sort of thin bit of the knife, and I mean, you can sort of hold them further back, or you can't really hold it any further forward, so I don't know. Let's just do some chopping, and this is silly, this isn't for any purpose apart from just to feel the knife out, so just going to chop, and we'll chop for about a minute and let you know how it feels doing that. So I'll start with just a standard foregrip. Because it's intuitive, I'm finding my hand just wanting to do this, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm obviously not planning on cutting all the way through this. This really is just for ergonomics rather than effectiveness at chopping. This is a small knife. It's not going to be, you're not going to be cutting down, geez, you're not even going to be cutting thin branches like this with it. Use an axe for that, or a bigger knife. Yeah, that feels okay. There's enough swell at the ends there to be able to hold that quite well. The recoil isn't as bad as I thought it would be. I often sort of slate these sort of exposed tang knives having bad recoil. It is worse than the Gerber strong arm or the Falcon even especially, but it's not too bad, and that actually wasn't as arduous. Actually, probably doing the shavings was probably what caused more discomfort. But yeah, again, this is a very personal thing, like what kind of handles you like. All I'm noticing is my thumb is digging in heaps into this jimping, which now I guess now the coating is off is probably a bit sharper, so maybe strike one for me, I'm not sure. So the jimping is sort of sanding my thumb a little bit. So probably gloves are the best things to use when you're using this knife, I would say. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to knock together a fire. Might even use the knife to strike the igniter. Alrighty, so I've put in a few makeup pads. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my HUD salve. I'm going to see if that's got a bit of a Vaseline factor to it for a bit of the old extender type substance for your makeup pads. See how that goes. Down there. So I'll use I'll use the back of the spine. I know it's superfluous because this comes with a striker, but we'll see how we go. Use my little nook that I knocked. The ground's pretty warm. It's been a pretty nice warm day. I'm going to fluff these up a little bit more perhaps. Oh, there we go. Well, certainly seems to be going. Always helps to have a few man-made assists when you're doing fiery stuff. I'm not big into being able to make it without, with all natural ingredients or anything like that. Whatever gets it done. I do like to use a ferro rod just because it's fun, but that's really all. And even a ferro rod isn't. I don't know how ferro rods just all of a sudden decided that was the rustic option of choice, because really they're just as man-made as matches are. It's just they need a little bit more, perhaps, skill to use, so they sort of have that more respectable thing going on with them. I don't know. It's funny how the perceptions of things get funny like that. Yeah, it's definitely a funny knife for carving. Sorry about my stream of consciousness presentation on this. I'm sort of just coming out using the knife and almost just doing one long smash cut about it. So I might edit this down later, but we'll see. Yeah. Yeah. There is no shortage of little kindling sticks in the Aussie bush. I have split these down a little bit, but fire is looking like it's probably going to stick around, which is good. Well, my overall thoughts on the BK17, yeah, pretty positive. I don't expect every knife, and I know there's a huge market for these sort of slab handled carbon steel sort of camp or survival knives. In fact, most survival knives seem to be sort of very similar to this general style of knife. And I can see why, because the price is low. Like it's a lot of knife for, what is it, 90 Australian dollars I paid for it. For a good brand, $10.95 steel knife, you get a lot of knife for it. And whereas my Falkniven, which I do still prefer a lot more than this, it was more comfortable and just felt better and more intuitive doing everything. Or like my Mora Bushcraft Black, for example. Those knives are sort of more single purpose. The Falkniven especially is a sort of definitely the convex grind. It's something that you kind of get used to, and then you sort of have trouble separating yourself from. And I think that's why I like that knife so much, because I remember when I first started using the Falkniven, I was a bit perturbed by even the grip. Like, I was used to knives like this, and then I went to the Falkniven, and then I come back to this and it just doesn't seem quite right. So yeah, it's a funny, I don't know where I am really with my little mid-sized camp survival knives now, because I think about 2 years ago this would have been, I would have thought this was the best thing ever. So I don't know, but from my use, the steel's held up really well from smacking it into, in a simulated sort of chop. The handle feels, as I said, feels great to just hold it, so you're very comfortable to just do, your less impactful or your less forceful tasks. But once you start talking on the knife, I found that the jimping dug in a little bit too much. They're quite squared off. They're really quite angular. The jimping squares. It's like a sort of a blocky square jimping, and the handle's fine. It's just perhaps it's a bit too thin there. I was wrapping my hands too much around, and it was giving me a bit of a cramp. Sort of when I torque these two fingers, I kind of get a cramp here. It's just how my hands work. So perhaps it's just not the perfect fit for me. Would I recommend the knife? I would. I'd still recommend the knife. You get a lot of value. You get the two different sets of slabs. You get a very good sheath that holds a multi-tool, or as I'm using today, a fire steel. Yeah, you get good materials and good workmanship. There's nothing wrong with the knife at all. I didn't like the coating, so I took it off, that was a bit of an annoying process. You had to use those really horrible, horrible paint stripper type, this big gluggy jelly type product. Just soaked it in that for a couple hours. Coating peeled straight off, but there you go. So now I'm just going to oil it. I might even blow it with some gun blue or something like that. Or yeah, it splits well. Saber type, or two-stage flat grinds are really good for splitting wood. So it was cool when I split down a couple of these sticks. It was, went through really easily, and it's a lot easier. People say batoning's not an essential task, and I don't think it's essential, but it's it definitely made this easier. Like, this would still be one big round stick, and I wouldn't have this nice flat piece of stick now. So yeah, did that fairly well. You wouldn't want to go anything too big, because obviously the blade's only about 4.5 inches long, but so did the splitting of the batoning really well. Shut that bad boy in there. So my thoughts are positive, but it's definitely not my favourite of my knives. It's probably not close to the strong arm or the F1, the knives that I often sort of go on about. I like it probably about as much as just a Mora, or something that you sort of don't have as much attachment to. You sort of get attached to tools that you really, really like. So say I've got a Mora Companion, Mora 612. They're fun, and I'll probably take them out for variety from time to time, but yeah, I don't really, I can't see myself getting attached to this knife, even though I have kind of somewhat personalised it. Just using it, you take out tools that you enjoy using, really, especially if I'm going to be doing something more protracted. Probably won't bring this. What else? The tip shape, people sort of aren't as keen on the clip point, the tip. I can't see myself really using it for a task that's going to need a strong tip, because you could still do a little bit of drilling and things with a tip like this, and actually it's quite good for making little holes and things like that. So I'd probably still have chosen the clip tip if I could do it again. I've got enough drop point knives, so maybe that will be a little niche that this can fill for me if I want something to perhaps do a few more little intricate things, like if I'm ever going out making traps, which I'm just not interested in, but things like that. It'd be good to have around if you needed to do sort of finer work on like your tarp or your camp setup. You need to make a hole in a belt or something. Clip point would be good for that. But other than that, yeah, I wouldn't say it's left me cold, but it's probably left me just a little bit meh, you know. That's all. That's about all. But I will keep it. It'll stay in my collection as sort of, you know, it's different. It'll stay in my collection as a carbon steel clip point slab handled knife. But I probably won't get another carbon steel slab handled knife anytime soon. This will do me, I reckon. Yeah. Please like and subscribe if you like my videos. I will be reviewing a really cool little light from Surefire very soon. That's the Titan A1, so stay tuned for that. That was expensive, so please stay tuned for that. Don't make that purchase. I'm hoping it's just a good light, but please don't make that purchase for yourself, because it was like $120 by the time it gets here for a single AAA light. So keep an eye out for that video. And there's a hatchet that's coming from the Best Made company. It is their new hatchet. I think it's made by Council Tool, but it is I haven't seen anyone else selling them, because lots of the axes, they're just Council Tool velvet cut axes rebranded with longer handles, but this looks like an original creation that they've probably made with Council Tool. So it's the straight hold hatchet, so that should be here on Monday, and I should be out testing it on Wednesday, so that'll be something to look forward to as well, if you look forward to my videos at all. Cool, well, thank you for watching. I'm going to get the dogs some food and sit by this fire a little bit longer, and then turn in from that. See ya. Hey, who's the good dogs? Hey, who's the good dogs? Hmm? Thanks for watching, guys.